Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today's video is about something which many of my friends, colleagues, nationally as well as internationally, they asked me to share my personal experience about transitioning back to Pakistan. And I feel this is something very important to understand. What are the pros and cons when you take this decision? I personally believe every decision is right. It just takes your personal comfort and peace, how you take it. And that's what I'm going to share from this video. Again, it is my personal experience, and everyone's experience could be somewhat different, but I think there are many things to share which are going to be common. So let's start with today's video, which is about transition to developing countries, and I'm going to give my perspective as I move back to Pakistan. So I tried to divide that into three categories: as professionally, socially, and religiously, and try to go over what I felt, what I think were the good things that I came across, and what were the downside of that decision. And it probably gonna help other people to refine or to forward think whenever they come across similar scenarios or crossroads in their life. So professionally, I call it, in developed countries, they have set system in place. They're a big organization, so you become part of the big machine, or you try to create your own machine. When you try to create your own machine, naturally you have to start from scratch. It takes a lot of investment and resources. But when you go to a developing country with somewhat minimal resources and with your expertise, you may be able to start or create your own machine, which is an advantage. So let's start professional benefits of moving to a developing country. As a physician, and I believe it's kind of similar in other professions as well, there's a small pool of professionals. Like in Pakistan, there were close to 350 neurologists. There was only one neuromuscular specialist other than me. So it's a small pool of professionals, and you can very quickly become recognized among that pool, and that becomes easier to communicate, to share patients' expertise and all. So I think it's very easy to get recognized when you move back to a developing country. Again, in developing countries, especially in Pakistan, there is a big population size. So you may come across pathology which is totally untapped. Working in a developing country, you may not see that much of varied pathology because there are so many other doctors who are going to share that patient pool. And you may see great pathology, have the chance to do things the way you want to do it, and you can learn more professionally if you move back to developing country. As I said, you develop professional connections and communication very quickly. You do get a lot of national recognition, naturally, as a result of that. And that also portrays or reflects in international recognition as well, which is very helpful. I feel moving back to Pakistan give me international beside national recognition. When you are working in a developing country, you have the opportunity to do things differently. You have the liberty to do things the way you want to do it, or you come across in different places and you want to make or try your own recipe about it. So there are chances of innovation, which I try to do the similar way, but everyone can do things the way they want to do, which in a developed country, you may not have that much of liberty or wiggle room. Again, as I said, you do get international recognition. Naturally, in countries which are developing, there is not enough data available from those countries. There is not enough research going on. So in a bigger pool of market where you do have a lot of people sharing the same expertise, you get a small amount of data to work on. So going back to developing country can give you this opportunity to work on a big amount of data, and that also helped me in publishing some good papers. Again, it also gives you a better understanding because you were born and raised in that society. So you know the community, the cultural background of that community better. You can interact them in a relatively more comfortable way because you know the perspective, the background. So that is helpful when you move back to a developing country where you have been raised. So that I feel there may be many more advantages of it, but I feel these were the highlighted ones, as I discussed with some of my other colleagues. Now, going back to developing country, do have the downside professionally, because naturally there is a reason that they are not making as much progress as the developing countries. And I think that kind of some of the topmost things are the favoritism or nepotism. If people are in position where they try to have people whom they like rather than the expertise or the professional background, that result in a downgrade system as a result. So nepotism is a big thing when you go back to any developing country, and that is actually hurting any system more than anything else. Discrimination on the same line, people who are in position, they try to discriminate professionally between their friends, family. There could be other reasons as well to discriminate. And if you're not getting what you deserve over a period of time, like if you're working hard, you're not getting the position that you deserve, you get sad and you lose heart and you kind of lose trust in the system and end up making different decisions. Another big thing that I came across, which I really want to highlight, is the malpractice. I believe every system has some degree of malpractice, but there are rules and regulation in place. When the rules and regulation are not good, the malpractice problem worsens. And that hurts everyone. It does hurt the common person. It does hurt the people who can afford, businessmen, bureaucrats, politicians, everyone as a result of it. It's just a vicious cycle. So I personally believe that what I came across is a lot of malpractice, despite I tried to do any, that was kind of my reason for starting the YouTube channel, to educate the society and communicate in a way so the malpractice can be controlled in some way. But I can tell that was a one big thing, and it really hurts as a physician that when you see there's a lot of malpractice among your colleague and your patients are being hurt at a certain level because of that. And similarly, if the professionals come across similar phenomena, so as I said, discrimination and nepotism can give you kind of similar phenomena professionally in your professional space. Lack of education at the community level, also among the professionals. And I think that is the reason that people are getting into nepotism and discrimination, because they're gonna have someone who is well educated and he is very well trained. It becomes very hard, and the people who are not well trained, they become highlighted. So it's hard for that person who is well educated to be adjusted or work with the people or team who are not very well trained or well educated. Similar phenomena for the society. If the patients are not well educated or the people you come across are not well educated, they come across phenomena where they are acting with agitation or they are losing respect. So that makes it a big trouble, especially for people who are well educated. It becomes a hard phenomena to bear. Next is actually lack of professional attitude, which is similarly, if the people are not well educated, they tend to lose their temper quickly. They lose that professional attitude. And I came across a couple of examples. Naturally, I don't want to go into the details, but I think that is another thing. And my idea is just to convey to people who are making or planning to make this decision in the future, and also the people who are listening to me, and they should kind of look through their behaviors, what they have done differently or what they have done not right. And there is always chance to improve. Politics is a big thing. I think in any developing country, well, there are politics at every level, but in developing country, I call it, it's more of dirty politics, leg pulling. I haven't come across a whole lot of phenomena, but yes, at a certain level, it also hurts the professionals who are well trained, well educated, and they tend to opt out. Again, if you're not having the professional growth because of nepotism, discrimination, it's very disheartening. And then you try to leave that place or try to join some other setup, and you may end up leaving the country. What I also came across is a lot of myths and taboos at the professional level as well as at the community level, because the patients who are coming to you, it becomes very hard to guide them or educate them when they are having some fixated mindset and they are having certain taboos. In every society or culture, there are certain taboos, and it becomes hard, and it takes a lot of education. I think it has to be at multi-level to really address that particular myths or taboos. and that affect the quality of care that you're trying to provide as a professional. Next, as I said, socially, I'll say you're as good as you are going up and up, which I think is a common phenomenon in any society, but it is more apparent in a developing country. If you are making good money, if you are having a good social status, people tend to stick with you, people like to meet you. But if in any way you're not helpful to them or not accepting whatever demands they are having, or you feel those are not ethical, people tend to leave you. That becomes naturally, it's disheartening again. But a simple rule is you're good as long as you're going up and up. So benefits of developing countries socially are that you're close to family. I think that is the biggest advantage of moving back to developing country, that you're close to the people you were born and raised, and you share a lot of good memories with them. So it's an opportunity to be with your parents, you reconnect with your family and friends. I think that's the best part of that. And then I think a bigger purpose to that is serving the deprived community, because the developing countries, there are not many subspecialists available. Like in Pakistan, there was only 2 neuromuscular subspecialists when I was there. So it gives you a lot of gratitude from the patient side and a lot of personal, professional satisfaction that you're trying to serve the community where it's very well needed. And then you enjoy the cultural background of your upbringing, because you know the people, your society, the culture. So you have a chance to interact with a lot of people at very different level, and you enjoy that pretty much. And I enjoyed it very much as well. And then learning to survive in an underserved society. So this is a very good skill. So I'll say, as it's in the start of the presentation, I said there is nothing wrong with any decision. Every decision has its own pros and cons. And I think this is the best part, beside serving the deprived community, that you learn how to see, try to help, or provide the quality care in an underserved society. And I think it's very, very helpful, because you tend to innovate. So that's very helpful. And especially in a patient, in a society where there are a lot of social taboos, you also learn how to handle those. Again, socially, there is a concern about effect on the kids. So when you go back, your kid's going to be in the same environment or culture where you were raised. So you know a lot of the background, the pros and cons of that society. You can share with your kids and try to make them better human beings. So, but I think it's comforting that the kids are in a society or culture where you are raised and you know that culture very well. Now, the downside of a developing country socially could be loss of the basic human values. I think that is another big thing. Besides professionally, you do see discrimination. So, and there is a loss of basic human values in terms of rule of law is not there as well. So people at the community level are not very sensible, or the choices they make or the behaviors they show are not as refined. As a result, it becomes very depressing and sometimes annoying for people who have seen or worked in international society, and they have seen very refined or met people who are very refined human being, and then you kind of feel, oh, where I'm lost in this place, because naturally with the passage of time it gets over you. But basic human interaction is very well affected in those places. People don't care, people shout, or may get abusive or get angry very quickly. But I think more importantly is the lack of rule of law at all levels, which kind of hurt everything. Because if there is a rule of law, many things can be streamlined. Again, socially, there could be discrimination. It could be based on your social status. It could be based on your monetary status. Again, the quality of life in developing countries is not as good as what we see in developed countries, which is very well expected. I think it's an intentional risk that you take. But again, it's your choice. So you may not have that quality of life that you have enjoyed in a developed country. Again, the social growth, you may not have as fast or as good as what you have in a developed country because of your better financial status. And the effect on the kids go both ways. Again, it could be good effect, it could be bad effect, or kids start noticing or comparing things, and then it becomes a much bigger challenge for the parents to guide them, because naturally there are good things, but also there are things which are not good in any society, and the kids can catch on to anything. So I think the best way would be to pray, that your kids stay on the right path, but to educate them, guide them, nurture them so they can make the good choices in their life and try to avoid the bad things. Now, religiously, I believe every human being has a user manual, and for humans, it's the religion. I take it as a guide for any religion. There is a message for peace, there is message for harmony, respect for each other, and I think every religion taught us those values, and then as human, we tend to mix things. Okay, so the benefits of developing country, like Pakistan, religiously is the people have the same background where you're raised, so you know the religious or cultural background, so you know the good and the bad things of that society, and then you know the system well, you know the routines, you can understand how much freedom that you can have, or what's considered to be normal, what is not considered to be normal, and any culture religiously. Again, it varies from place to place depending on the country you're raised in. In Pakistan, I think it's comforting, but at the same time, it takes a lot of guidance to the kids as well, because there are things which are not very, very nice in any culture, like in any country. I personally feel religiously when people come across some fixated mindset. And for that, the biggest reason is that people who are actually at the forefront of religion, they don't have international exposure. So they don't understand, despite the fact we always read about the harmony and peace with each other, but with no international exposure, people tend to stick to certain ideas. They may develop some mindset based on the media, and it becomes very hard to educate them unless you travel, come across people, and then you realize that how nice people from different backgrounds could be. There is a lack of wider perspective. So again, with no international exposure, people tend to not understand the wider perspective of harmony and peace and understanding each other, because it's like holding hands together can make you have a better progress in any society or culture. And again, it results in religious inflexibility, because people just, if they get their knowledge from the books, it becomes very hard to practically implement it because they don't have the international exposure, international interaction, or people with the different backgrounds. Like in a society like USA, where it's a melting pot for many different cultures, I feel the people are more flexible in terms of different religions, background, and cultures. I feel there are people who are stereotypes, and they tend to follow stereotypes. Again, it becomes dependent on the media, what they hear, because they haven't met anyone internationally, and they just stick to those particular stereotypic figures or stereotypic ideas. And it's hard to change them unless they have that international exposure. And this is very well expected or seen in the developing countries, and the people where there has been international exposure. Like I can tell when I was in Gulf, people were traveling internationally, they were much more understanding, and they understand the importance of giving space to other people. In developing countries, I feel it's primarily survival of the fittest. So people tend to work very hard to achieve or get something, but at the same time, they may not get enough reward. And that makes them, it's like a tooth and nail fight sometimes. So I feel that if there is better understanding of holding hand, progressing together, then these things can improve in any developing country. These were some of those questions that I came across when I was moving back to States, and many of my friends, colleagues, family members, they threw these questions on me, and I want to share my personal perspective about these questions. So somebody said, your kids will never come back to Pakistan again, and I think that's an intentional risk. Again, I can educate them. I want them to be better human being. If they want to come back, it is totally their choice. If we look back in the history, when people used to travel for centuries, people used to travel to the centers of education, and they learn, they practice, they move or travel around. They may not come back to their hometown. So I think that's very well expected, and everyone has different idea about this. The other question was that I will lose connection with the family back home. Again, this is another intentional risk. The best way is that you communicate in the present time. There are so many communication media there, you can keep connected with the family. Naturally, you are not physically there, but virtually you could be there. We are providing virtual care during the COVID era. So I think it's a kind of similar phenomena, but we need to understand, yes, it is not as good as a physical touch of someone, but it is still a compromised state, but at least you know what's going on in terms of the family affairs or other things, and you can participate one way or another. And in this way, your family can stay connected as well. Then what's going to happen if your kids are raised in a different culture? That's another intentional risk. So naturally, you were raised in a different culture, and your family or your kids are going to be raised in a different culture. They're going to absorb good things and bad things. It's going to be the similar phenomena back home. More importantly is to educate the kids, guide them, nurture them, let them make their choices. There is not a right or wrong decision. And I personally tend to quote Ibn Khaldun at this moment, because there's a very beautiful rubai by him, and he said that the parents are just like bow and kids are like an arrow. So you, as parent, try to do your best resources you provide to the kids and aim for the target and leave the arrow. And the arrow gonna hit the target or not, gonna drop on the way, gonna go sideways, this is not your fault. You are supposed to provide the resources. So I kind of tend to follow that, and I think it will be helpful to think this way. So I feel the recipe for success as a mature, educated professional and a human being is hard work. I am a big advocate for hard work in whatever field you are in. Never lose the color or the flavor of hard work. Continue doing that for all of your life, and that will give you the best rewards possible as a human being. Next factor that pitch in what you're going to come your way or what you're going to be able to achieve in your life based on luck, or what we call is from Allah. So you get it or not. Again, it all depends, but you continue doing your hard work and you get some reward on the way, but you cannot judge it before time. Third part is also very important, is about patience. So with hard work and luck, you wait and see. So you have to stick to your plan, continue with that, and good things are going to come your way. Naturally, whatever decision you make in your life, there are going to be some sacrifices involved. Those sacrifices are very well understood, and I think you should be ready. Anyone should be ready for those. And keep the consistency. If you work hard for a few days and you leave it for a few days, or you have a patience for some period of time and then you don't have patience, then it becomes difficult to achieve big goals. So try to stick to your principle, your aims, your objectives. Do discuss with your spouse or your family so everyone is on board about what you're doing and you don't have any regrets. And be disciplined. Discipline in any way gonna be helpful in your social life, in your religious life, in your professional life. So if you're keeping the consistency and you're disciplined, there's a high possibility you're gonna get a lot of recognition at every level. Finally, all these trickle down to your self-confidence. If you're working hard, you're getting rewards on the way, you have been consistent, people have seen and they trusted you, and that's gonna build your confidence as well with the passage of time. So my message at the end is that never underestimate the power of few good men. This is the quote I really enjoy or like. Why? Because not everyone is supposed to achieve the best. Not everyone is supposed to be at the bottom as well. But if you continue to follow the recipe of success, then there's a good possibility you will be able to achieve good and big things for yourself and a good name for yourself. And more importantly, don't underestimate your power to bring a change. This is a very beautiful thing that I got it from one of my colleagues about pick your poison, because every decision gonna have some downside. There's gonna be some sacrifices involved. So pick your poison and be ready to face it, whatever comes your way. But you should be mentally and physically strong as well as psychologically to handle the stress. Another important part is that you recognize your worth. And that is sometimes important, but at the same time, you have to make some choices as well, but try to recognize what you are capable of, and everybody is different. And if you realize, that really helps you achieve goals. It is your patience or circumstances at the end. So either your patience run out, or circumstances become so worse, or become so good in a way that you change your mind. But I think being flexible is really nice. But I think it is either the patients or the circumstances that can change your decision. And there is no harm with that. But again, do discuss with your spouse and your family. Go ahead and take the decision and stick to your personality with patience and luck and everything. And finally, I'll say be at peace and enjoy the ride. There was a very beautiful thing that I read that don't enjoy the destination, enjoy the journey as well. So please enjoy the journey, enjoy your life, have fun, and just try to be in the circle that you don't hurt anyone or hurt anyone's feeling. I hope this video will be helpful for anyone who is making those decisions or coming across crossroads where they have to make big decisions. Thank you very much.